Alright, I'm back with a different deck. This one I call Burning Skies. It follows the blue-white skies archetype, but I've added some red in it to get that reach that we're looking for. I'm going to start with just all of the big pieces of the deck, which are the creatures. I've separated them kind of into three different piles here. These I would call the value creatures. These are like, well, maybe we'll get into it, but these are value, these are flash, these are prison in a sense. So let's just start with the prison-y ones. I'll just set these over here. So we have a lot of disruption pieces. And the main reason we're looking for these is to disrupt our opponent's plans. So you have some counterspell ones, you have ones that make it harder to target your things, only casting one spell a turn, their lands are coming into play tapped. This one is similar with the lands, snow lands enter tapped, and then non-creature spells cost a little bit more if they give 4 more. You can steal some of their stuff. You can make them temporarily discard a spell. They can play 2 more. And then you have a little protection spell here. You can give your creatures hexproof or indestructible. So these are a lot of the pieces. Now, in this deck, everybody has flying, except for 2, which we'll get to in a bit. But all these are flyers. So everything is going to be affected by Jubilant Skybonder and some of the other cards that we'll get to. So in this pile where I've put the Obsidian Charma, newer spell from Modern Horizons 2, costs 1 less for each land your opponent's control that could produce a colorless. Also has flying, 4/4, and when it enters, it destroys a non-basic land an opponent controls. Pretty useful ability. Let's see, we have some hasters. The Lightning Angel, this is a classic 3/4 flying haste vigilance. Sprite Dragon gets bigger when you cast non-creature spells, also has haste. The Mantis Rider, flying vigilance haste. And I think those are the hasters. Now, Vadrock is probably the closest to Mantis Rider we have, a 3/3 flying first strike. So some keywords, not the exact keywords. I don't think I mutate this guy a lot, but you could mutate it to get back some draw spell. I just think he's a good enough value creature as a 3/3 first strike that you're going to be able to hit in with. This is one of the big reasons, the Imperial Eagle, that we are playing all these flyers. It's a flying lord. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. In a similar vein, the Skycat Sovereign gets +1/+1 for each creature you control with flying, and you can make catbirds with flying. Your flying creatures cost 1 less, and whenever you cast a flyer, it buffs him for a turn. And then some other cards, the Murktide Regent. If you've been playing much Modern, this card is currently taking a lot of life total chunks out of people, and it does the exact same here. We're playing because, yeah, we just want to delve a bunch of stuff away, play a big dude, be able to attack. Wretch's Valkyrie. We do actually have a fair number of clerics and other angels, so you are going to get a lot of life off of this guy, and if you do reach over 7, over 27 life, you're going to get that nice double anthem effect. So don't discount the Valkyrie. Now here are some of the flash cards we're having. So if you have the opportunity, these let you play on your opponent's turn and just counter something, bounce something, also just put a flyer into play. Fairy Vandal, I really like. We have a couple ways to draw multiple cards a turn, typically 1 extra, and do that multiple times, so he can get out of control. The Obstructionist, I normally play it as a flash 3/1, but if you need to stifle Thassa's Oracle trigger or something, that's why this card is great. It can attack, or it can stay on that stifle roll. Just hold it in your hand. Rattle Chain is honestly just a 2/1 flash. Spectral Sailor, 1/1 flash for 1. Lets you draw cards if you got extra mana, so you can just hold it up on your opponent's turn. The Clique is another good way to disrupt some of the combo decks. We'll, I guess, just go to Mind Sensor as well. Another good way to stop the combo decks. And 2 Angels here. They both flicker. Well, rather, Restoration Angel flickers when it enters the battlefield. And Glorious Protector kind of contains one of your creatures until it leaves. So if they're casting a removal spell on, say, your Aven Mind Sensor, and you don't have a counterspell, you could flash the Protector in, and he's going to cover your... He's going to, well, keep your Aven Mind Sensor in exile until he leaves. And then if they board wipe, Protector dies, Aven Mind Sensor comes back. And if you don't target anything, it's just a flash 3/4, which is pretty good. So those are the creatures of the deck, except for, well, sorry, these are the flying creatures in the deck. There are 2, oh, I've knocked the camera. There are 2 non-flyers that I figured they were good enough that I can include them. Main reason we're including the Bone Crusher is Stomp. Stomp is just a really good ability. It kills a lot of things in the format right now, as well as being able to prevent damage. And on the back side, or I guess the main side, is the 4/3 giant that is hard to target. It's going to be shocking your opponents every time they target it. And Skyclave Apparition, one of our best removal spells in the deck. Anything 4 or less, they can exile. We're not too worried about the token if this dies because, well, the token doesn't fly and everybody else we have does. So it's Skyclave Apparition, Bone Crusher Giant. They get the honorable flyer status. Okay, well, now that we've looked at the creatures, let's look at something else. All right, so here we have the points of the deck. Mox Sapphire, 3 points. Sol Ring, 4 points. Mox Pearl, 3 points. These are all artifacts that help you jump the curve. Either hold mana up early for 2, so you can hold a counter spell up on turn 1 with a Sapphire. Play the ring turn 1, so on turn 2 you can make a 4-drop. These are one of the big engines in the deck, and that's why, I mean, there's so many points. It's because what they let you do. If you don't draw them, it's fine. Your deck will still function, but when you do have them in your opener, you get that explosiveness. Now, I don't have a Mox Ruby. If you have a Mox Ruby, certainly you could play it over the Sol Ring and use your extra point on a True Name Nemesis, Dig Through Time, some other card, maybe Mana Drain. Something that would help. Because I do have the Sol Ring in here instead of the Mox Ruby, I've made a couple other choices that you don't have to make. And maybe you'll have to reevaluate, but these are what I've went with, and I really like this point spread because it lets us do something that we'll get to right now. So what we're trying to do is jump ahead of the curve. These are the pointed ways to do it with the Mox in and the Sol Ring, but we also have budget Mox, Chrome Mox. I mean, it's still probably $100 or something. Mox Diamond, which is $700 or something ridiculous. So I'm not saying it's that much of a budget, but these are ways to buff our Mox and count. They have downsides. You have to discard a land. You have to exile a card, but they have upsides as well. In that you're getting ahead. So you're trading cards for that mana. Aether Vial as well. Takes a couple turns to go, but once you have it on 2 or 3 counters, you're just able to put guys into play every turn. hold your mana up for counter spells. So a good way to get ahead of the curve. And the reason I'm playing these 5 artifact sources, kind of 6, is because I wanted to play Winter Orb and break it in a deck that doesn't use... It uses more tempo aspect to break Winter Orb than it does a mana advantage with elves or artifacts. The game plan of the deck is get out early, get some threat, make your opponent respond to you. So hopefully they tap out, they've had to do something. If you don't have a counterspell or something, maybe your board gets wiped, you reset, and once they're tapped out, you are able to lock them out. That's the advantage of Winter Orb in this style of deck. You're being aggressive enough, just attacking with guys, forcing them to play a lot slower, or at least consider all their plays. They might not necessarily have time to tap out for a Jason Mind Sculptor. If they're at 12 life, getting hit for 4 by 2 different creatures, it's just not going to work out that well. So this is what we've built the deck around. These 10 points, these mana accelerators, and the Winter Orb to tie them all together. So we have those artifact mana sources, 5 of them, and then we have 32 lands, I believe. A couple basics, I think 9. These are the only 2 utility lands we have. 1 wasteland, again, to keep them a little off balance. Caracas as well, just to, well, hopefully they tap out to cast some legendary, we bounce it. Costs us 1 mana, costs them 4. That's kind of the goal. And then just a bunch of color producing lands, nothing too exciting here, a couple fetches. So yeah, 32 lands. We're able to kind of trim a little bit because we're playing those artifact sources, just trying to get out ahead before our opponent. Now, there's a couple planeswalkers in the deck. These 3, Sarah the Benevolent. The +2 ability pumps all your creatures with flying, +1/+1 until end turn. So that can get really out of control. Even with 2 flyers, it's +1/+1 on each of your guys. They're now going to be connecting for a lot more. The first thing you do probably when you cast it, I mean, depending on your board state, is your second ability. -3, you make a 4/4 white angel creature with flying and vigilance. So Sarah Angel, basically, for 4 mana, and it leaves a planeswalker around, so that's perfect. The -6, we're not going to get to. So I mean, we could get to it. It's really the +2 and the -6, and you're there. But you don't really need the worship effect that it provides. If you do, well, I wish you better luck next game. Mu Yan Ling, the Sky Dancer. This removes flying from opposing creatures. So it kind of gives, if they do have any flying blockers, you're able to remove that blocker and keep the pressure on. The typical play pattern here is just +2. Next turn -3, make a 4/4. Just like Sarah, you're making 4/4s. These are really big creatures, especially this early on turn 4. Because on turn 3 you'll +2, turn 4 you'll -3. Really effective. Royal Scions I really like actually as well. Only plus abilities essentially. And using the middle ability, target creature gets +2/+0, first strike, and trample until end of turn is typically what you'll be doing. It really pushes a lot of damage through. So I really like Royal Scions. Really fun. A good reason to add red to this deck, I found. Along with these planeswalkers, I have a couple of enchantments. Let's start with these 2 enchantments. Curious Obsession and Staggering Insight. Both of these buff your creature. This one gives it lifelink. And both of them have, if this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. So you're pushing your advantage again, drawing a card, and importantly, giving +1/+1. A lot of what you'll find when you're playing with this deck, I'm just going to try and find some flyer here. Let's find Vadrock because he's a 3/3. A lot of cards do get bolted. A lot don't, like the Angels we have or whatever, who are 3/4s. Oh yeah, here's a 2/3, here's a 2/4. Just to highlight something here. So not going to get bolted, hard to get rid of, and pumps a lot of your guys if you have that life total. Archon, it's going to get bolted, right? It does have a good effect. It has to get bolted if they want to do anything else. Same with Vadrock. Now, Curious Obsession or Staggering Insight both help prevent bolts. I mean, that's really what that +1/+1 effect is. That's why I'm not playing just Curiosity, because the +1/+1 is a big enough benefit that you want to play these over it. It just quickens your clock. And a lot of your cards will do that. Favorable Winds is another one of those +1/+1 effects. It does it for your entire team, which is fantastic, and it's an Anthem for only 2 mana, which is also fantastic. So really good here. Fall from Favor is a removal spell that makes you the Monarch. If you've seen my previous video about the Time Paradox, this is a card that shows up there as well. But it taps a creature down, makes you the Monarch. That creature doesn't tap until your opponent is the Monarch. So I really like Fall from Favor. It's the cheapest way to get the Monarchy, and with Soul Ring, you can do it as early as turn 2. I mean, you could do it as early as turn 1 with a Moxen and a Soul Ring and another Moxen, but whatever. Court of Grace, another Monarch card. I have found this one to be fantastic. If you're the Monarch, you're making 4/4s, and if you aren't the Monarch, you're making 1/1s. Both creatures have flying, so this is always going to be a threat. If you aren't the Monarch and you're making 1/1s, you're threatening to take that Monarch back. So they have to answer that 1/1 every turn if you've lost the Monarch. But hopefully you haven't, and you've just been able to keep growing your army of 4/4s. So Court of Grace, take the Monarchy. Pump your Angels that you're making off your Planeswalkers, and keep pushing that damage. Okay, here is I would say the interaction of the deck. We're not playing too many cantrips. Ponder, Preordain, Brainstorm, and the newest one, Expressive Iteration. These are our few draw spells, not too many. Some at sorcery speed, or most, I guess, at sorcery speed, just to help smooth out those initial draws. This is really where the burning part comes in. We haven't added too many red cards, but these are basically all red. You have Fork Bolt. This helps you get rid of mana elves, so your Winter Orb can keep doing its good work. Lightning Bolt, just really strong. Abrade, again, removal spell, destroys artifacts. Lightning Helix can just get you ahead in the race. Prismatic Ending, a very strong removal card because it targets any non-land permanent type. Another good reason to add red, so you can target things that are 3 colors. I don't think you really need to target 4, but definitely anything 3 or less, Prismatic Ending is a good answer to. I mean, it's a fantastic answer to. Swords to Plowshares as well, any creature, you're going to give them life, but if you're targeting one of their creatures, there's a good chance you needed to. And then the counter spells in the deck, not too many, and you'll see a lot of them are situational or try and do something, I guess, a little different. So I'll say Daze. I mean, it is basically a Force Spike. Also, we're playing Force Spike. But the advantage of Daze is you can tap out to play some guy, then bounce a land. What you can do with Winter Orb as well is return some tapped land. You don't have a land drop next turn. You can return that tap land, then play it. Untap some other land. You're back to 2 mana instead of the 0 you may have been at. Counterspell, pretty good. Stifle, pretty good. We can talk about these a bit. I'm just going to set these aside for a second. Remand allows you to kind of keep your tempo going. You're going to just reset something of theirs, draw a card. Miscalc, another thing. When they're playing under Winter Orb, a lot of the pressure is, oh my god, I have to do something now. I have to do something now, you know, to get out of it. And they usually tap out. They don't have time to hold up an extra 1 or an extra 2 mana. So that's why I find a lot of these Spell Pierce or Miscalc spells really strong. Mental Misstep, again, this just helps you, you know, stop your opponent's broken starts or Ancestral Recalls late game. Mana Leak, same thing as like the Spell Pierce, lose focus. I found this a very, very strong card. If you haven't played it, I would definitely recommend trying it. The Force Spike that we mentioned before, just counterspell unless they pay 1, and Force of Will. Now, like I mentioned, a lot of these are conditional. And you're okay with them being conditional because hopefully you're putting the pressure on your opponent with your own cards. Spell Pierce and Spell Snare. I just wanted to point out Spell Snare because North 100 recently did a podcast. One of the guests on the show, Blake Rasmussen, I believe, doesn't play Spell Snare in one of his decks. Now, he was saying he wasn't playing it in the deck, or he did play it in the deck because of the metagame that he expected. He expected a certain metagame where it would be good. And I find in the metagame that I'm playing, yeah, I'm always wanting to play the Spell Snare. There's always some 2-drop that you're going to be stopping, and the fact that you can be mana efficient on it, 1 mana to counter something that costs 2, is the greatest game this card has in a deck like this, where you're trying to be resource light playing under Winter Orb. And that is really the deck. That's all we have. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you bring some flyers and they'll hold you under their wings. Never mind this giant. He's not holding you under any wing. He's going to stomp you. But I found it to be a lot of fun. It's really great always being able to attack without having to worry about your opponents being able to block because yours have flying. So evasion, strong ability in Magic. I would consider picking this deck up if you want. If you don't have the Moxen, you might just need to change the plan a little bit, which is totally fine. Just add a couple more lands, maybe some more cantrips. Maybe all your opponents would go then into the more efficient card draw spells. It will slow you down a little bit, which is fine. It's just going to change the way that you play the deck, and maybe you don't want the Winter Orb plan with the Dazes and the Miscalcs. Maybe you want a bit more control, protect the Queen style. So thanks for watching. This has been the Burning Skies deck, and thanks again.